hello, everybody. I'm Chip Wadsworth. I'm a managing director here at RBC Capital Markets in San Francisco. Importantly, though, I've been a member of the All Stars Bay Area Board for the last 3 years, and it's been extremely rewarding to have a front row seat and see this organization, really rise to the challenge that I think many folks have faced over the course of the last 12 months, and ultimately redefine the way that we engage with young people. I'm also really happy tonight to be here for this very important conversation with Kaya Harris Thompson, very specifically in the context of what's happening more broadly. Kaya has been a true leader within the organization. And somebody that I first met when she was interviewing for a position out here back a couple of years ago, and not surprised that she blew us away with enthusiasm and creativity back then, and to see her continue to lead an organization here over the course of the last couple of years, it's been a wonderful component to be part of. So by way of background, Kaya hails from New Jersey, where she was for 11 years a science teacher. So definitely shout out to all those teachers. After teaching, Kaya later transitioned to the nonprofit leadership world, and she's been in there for many years now. And as mentioned a couple of years ago, Kaya joined us here at the All Stars Project in San Francisco, essentially as the Associate Executive Director in the Bay Area, with a real focus on the Development School for Youth program. Over the course of the last year, though, Kaya's really made her mark, I think, on the organization by leading the successful pilot of the new National Development Coaching Program. And now, currently, she's performing as the All Stars Project National Director of Development Coaching. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kaya Harris Thompson for what we hope will be an engaging and interesting dialogue this evening. Kaya, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Chip, for that intro and for welcoming everybody into the room today. And I want to acknowledge, before we get started, acknowledge a couple of folks that I see, some folks who are a part of the All Stars Project staff here joining us today. So first, I'd like to acknowledge Jenny Zach. Jenny Zach is our our National Vice President of Development. And Jenny and I have been partnering along with Bonnie and doing a lot of our board work and our fundraising work out here. And then there's also, I see Antoine Joyce, who is an All Stars Vice President, National Vice President, and our city leader down in Dallas, running that operation there. And let's see, did I see anybody else? I see some of our board members. I see our board chair, Drew Williamson. I see one of our national board members, Jillian Teichert. Lots of folks in the room. And I'd like to get a feel for whom else might be in the room. And we have our Dr. Bonnie Gilden, of course, I cannot forget, who's in the room, who has led our operation out here for many, many years. Yeah, lots of folks in the room who have been here with the All Stars for a really long time, and some folks who may have only recently found the All Stars. So what I'd like for you all to do just for a second right now is just to, in the chat, I'd like you to use the chat and just tell us all where you are logging in from and how long you've been connected to the All Stars Project. So I'll give you like 1 minute to, in my teacher voice, 1 minute to do that. 16 years, Brooklyn. Yes. Brandon, 2 years. Steve Morris, 5 years. Steve Betts, 3 years. Steve is one of our program associates. Someone coming in from Oakland, from the Bay Area, Kendra Williams, one of our new volunteers from Gilead Sciences. It's her first year. That's awesome. Chris Coe, 14 years. Kendra, about 2 years. Yes, Kendra, also one of our program associates who works with our young people. Oh, wow. So we have a really nice range of folks in the room tonight. Like I said, some folks who've been here for some time, and some who are relatively new. And for the sake of those who've just met the All Stars Project, I just want to very quickly give you a snippet of a background of who we are. Of course, we are a nonprofit organization, a national nonprofit organization. We're in 6 cities. So we're here, of course, in the Bay. You heard me introduce our city leader down in Dallas. We're also in Chicago. We're in 2 cities in New Jersey, Newark and Jersey City. And of course, we are headquartered and were founded in New York City. And we at the All Stars Project, we engage poverty through after school and out of school time development programs for young people. And our approach to youth development incorporates and really uses what we call the power of performance. We have our roots in theater and in the arts, and quite specifically in improv as a theater technique. And so we use that in our practice with young people. And tonight's session, I'm really looking for this to be an opportunity for all of us to get to know one another, whether you've been a supporter or volunteer for a long time or recently. You all are a part of what makes the All Stars Project really special. And that really is found in how we build community, how we value community, how we bring people together. And so each and every one of you is a really important part of that All Stars community. And I'm really happy to see you all in the room. And in the spirit of sort of getting to know one another, I'd like to, share a little bit about myself for many of you who may not know a whole lot about Kaya. I'd like to introduce myself to you and tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from and what I'm bringing to what I have brought to the All Stars Project and why I'm even here in the first place. As Chip shared with you, I have my professional foundations in education. I was a teacher for a long time. And specifically, I come from a town called Asbury Park in New Jersey. Some of you might have heard of a maybe famous guy, Bruce Springsteen, I don't know, who hails from there as well. But I grew up, born and raised in Asbury Park. Asbury Park is a really small town. It's what I used to call a little hood town, a predominantly Black town, brown town. In a poor town with a lot of the situations and issues and challenges that you would find in any urban town across this country. And I actually went back to Asbury Park to teach, and I taught in a few other urban centers in New Jersey. And for so many years, I just saw real close and personal, how poverty wreaked havoc in the lives of my students and their families' lives, and how poverty really made it so difficult for my students to be academically successful, if you will. And so over the years of sort of seeing that over and over, it led me to want to kind of jump outside of the classroom to start working on some of these issues. And then I got into working in community development. My educational roots are in public and population health. And so I started doing some work. And again, I started seeing, again, up close and personal, the impact of poverty and saw how poverty was literally killing poor people in the healthcare and sector. And so all of these things just sort of to begin to build and develop in me a really deep concern for poor communities and for poor people. And so that's sort of one sort of piece of my background. And another interesting, I think, piece of my background is that in addition to growing up in Asbury Park, New Jersey, I also grew up in a white evangelical church. Very interesting. But that's a place where I grew up, and I was in that church. My family was a part of that church because my parents really believed in racial reconciliation, is what we called it at the time. And we are the only Black family in this church for many, many years. And you can imagine, as a young person, as a little kid, as a preteen, a teenager, it wasn't always very easy to be the only in that setting. But as I got a little older, I started to sort of recognize what it was that my folks believed in and what they were trying to do. And strangely enough, one of the things that they did was started an after-school program. And with that after-school program, at the heart of it was this sort of cross-racial community development work that was happening. And so that instilled something in me about the value of doing justice work and community-based work that is interracial, that is bringing lots of people together, people who are very different together. And so taking those sort of two pieces of my background and bringing them together and fast forwarding a couple of years, something very interesting happened within me around 2014. And in 2014, there was a really well-known case up in Ferguson, a young man by the name of Mike Brown, who was shot and killed by a police officer. And when that happened, and I know many people may have this particular story in relation to Ferguson, that did something to me. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you all tonight. There was a period of disillusionment that I went through. Given my background and what I believed about cross-racial work, I didn't want to do any of that anymore. I didn't want to have anything to do with white people, none of it. And I went through this period of being not just angry, but very deeply hurt, because in the midst of that, a lot of those folks that I had grown up with in that church, I began to see something else coming out of them. And I felt this sense of disappointment, this sense of betrayal. And it sort of had me to leave all that stuff that I knew to be the right thing to do, sort of by the wayside for a while. And so, I experienced some more of life over the next several years and started coming back to what I knew to be the kind of work that I wanted to do. And so taking all of that together, as I'm, moved out here to California with my family, and I come across this organization called the All Stars Project, and they're doing this cross-racial work, and they're working with folks who are in poor communities and young people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect place for me. And so here I am here today. And so it's interesting that I came on board here at the All Stars just a couple of months, literally, before the world just sort of stopped with the COVID-19 pandemic. And, as with most things in the world, that pandemic, shifted everything, the way we approach doing everything here at the All Stars when I work with young people. And we had to very quickly, figure out a way to continue offering the youth development, the after school development programs for young people. We were resolved that we were not going to miss a single beat. We were going to continue our young people having their every week workshops in what's called the Development School for Youth here at the All Stars Project. And so we had to get super creative, and we had to do what we as the All Stars Project do, and that is improvise, right? To create and build some new things. And so many of you have been a part of supporting us in doing that over the course of the past year. And what we found is that our young people responded to that. I mean, really responded to that. It was really something that they were needing. And we had to figure out how to continue giving them this experience that they needed. They were telling us they needed in this new virtual environment that, we've all been living in for such a long time. And so with those programs, one of the ways that we were innovative, and one of the ways that we got creative is we created that new program that Chip mentioned at the top, the development coaching program. And it's so interesting. We didn't quite know what was gonna happen with this program. It was a thought, it was an idea, and we talked about it and built it out. And it became a super successful program. And one of the reasons why it was so successful is because we were in this period of time, right, where we were so isolated. We were stuck in our houses and hadn't seen friends and family, coworkers, or what have you. And so this created an opportunity for so many people to start connecting with somebody else in the midst of all this. And so the development coaching program expanded, and we've been able to offer that to hundreds of young people in less than a year so far. And I just want to share a little anecdote with you. We are in the midst of our spring cycle of that development coaching program. And actually today we had what we call a coach check-in session. That's where our volunteer coaches can get together, talk with young people. Talk about the situations with young people, the conversations they're having. And one of our coaches today shared that, the young person that she's been coaching, she sort of just asked her, well, why did you decide to sign up for this development coaching program? And the young lady responded, well, I just needed someone to talk to. She is still not in school. She lives in a tough town where she's not able to work because she doesn't have transportation. And she's not able to get to a job. And it's not a neighborhood that's safe for her to go out and walk to get to public transportation or get to a job. And she's an only child. And so for a very long time, she's had very little contact with folks, sort of outside of her immediate household. And so she was needing to connect with someone. And so that program provided her with the opportunity to do that. And so that, really is illustrative of, the value of the work that we are all a part of here at the All Stars Project. It's really about the impact that this work is having on young people and young people across the country, and of course, young people here in the San Francisco Bay Area. With that being said, I would like to introduce you to a few of those young people who are from right here in the Bay Area, who are alumni of both the Development School for Youth After School program and our development coaching program. And we're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna allow you to kind of eavesdrop in on our conversation this evening. And so those three young people who I'd like to introduce to you are, let's see, hailing from the DSY class of 2020. Our newest class is Vilma Tayun. And from the DSY class of 2019 is Brandon Powell. And from the DSY class of 2018 is Ming Gao. So I would like for you all to give them a virtual round of applause as they take the stage here. And you should see them sort of spotlit on your screen. All right, so Brandon and Vilma and Ming, let's chat for a little bit. So what I'd like for you guys to do first is to just introduce yourselves to the room. Let everybody know who you are, where you're from, what you're currently doing, school, work, all of that good stuff. Anybody, jump on in.
Want to go, Ming? You want me to go? Okay, I'll go. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Powell. I'm 21 years old. I'm currently attending SF State. I am a senior, about 2 semesters from graduating. I'm going to graduate with a general business degree for a bachelor's. Currently, right now, I'm, like I said, a full-time student. I'm also currently a content creator, so I'm trying to get into Twitch streaming. So my username for Twitch streaming is datboybpoppin. I'll be posting my link in the chat later on, and I'll also be posting my LinkedIn as well. And I work for a pest control company currently called Best Pest Services.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Ming. I'm 20 years old. I'm from Oakland, California, and I'm currently a junior in UC Berkeley studying media studies and journalism. And I'm from the class of 2018.
Awesome.
Hello everyone, my name is Vilma Tayun, and right now I'm 19 years old. I graduated from the class of 2020. Right now I'm a freshman in Amigos College, and I'm studying for nursing. And I also work in a store for clothing. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's jump in to our conversation here. So I'd like to hear from each of you a little bit about what your experience was like way back when, for some of you, when you participated in the DSY. What would you say was maybe your biggest lesson or your biggest takeaway from that particular experience? And I'll go to you, Ming.
So I heard about DSY through a friend. and I joined my senior year of high school, and I thought it was really cool that the program was connecting young adults and high school students, as well as college students, to different companies and industries where you could develop yourself professionally. And yeah, it's been a while for me, but what I remember most and one of the most important takeaways from DSY was the aspect of performance. And I think that through those activities and icebreakers we did, it really taught me how to like be aware of my own attitude and mindset when I'm in a new situation, whether it be like you're uncomfortable or you're just unfamiliar with the situation. I think the aspect of performance really taught me to step out of my comfort zone and just
Mm,
embrace their surroundings.
I love that. I love that. What about you, Vilma? What's your biggest takeaway from your experience at the DSY?
I would say that from the beginning, I was like a busy girl. Like I was a senior, but I was so busy because I joined like many sports and programs. But at the beginning, I was kind of like I didn't know if I was going to apply for the All Stars, but I did. And one of my takeaways was from the big. I was so shy. Like I was so shy
Mhm.
to talk to people. Like when I talk, like when I used to talk to people, I was so shy that I didn't know what to say. But they have teach me like to be more open and to be like more professional because this is something that we really had to learn in our life. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And I remember Vilma when she interviewed for the DSY, and she is telling you the truth. She was very, very shy. And look at her now. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Vilma. Brandon, how would you respond to that?
I'm a complete opposite. I'm not very shy. I'm very
Mhm.
boisterous. When I step into a room, you know I'm there. I think for me, when I first came to the program, it's funny how I got in. I got dragged to a desk with my brother during a job event, I think, in a program event that was held at City Hall downtown by Mayor London Breed. And then like my brother was like, "Hey Brandon, come to this table. You might like this program." He like literally pulled me all the way over there and I go to the table and he's like, "Hey, you want to interview?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Yeah, just Dr. J will send you an email." And I got to the interview, talked and everything. I got in the program. I wasn't expecting much because I was already in a couple other programs at the time. But one of the things that I really liked is that it sharpened the skills that I already had or that I was already working on. So the concept of performance, being professional, learning about businesses and all different types of jobs that you can and can't do, what's realistic, what you can learn. Also, it helped me figure out what I do want to do and what I don't want to do. And it also like showed me that office jobs aren't as bad as I thought they were. Because at first I thought office jobs were like for zombies or robots who just want to sit at a desk all day and type, but I was completely wrong. I'm glad I was. So yeah, that's what DSY did for me personally.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts on that. And now I'd like you to sort of comment, since each of you have done or are currently a part of the development coaching program. I'd like for each of you to kind of talk a little bit about what that experience is like and what you are enjoying or what you have enjoyed most about being what we call a development coachee, either last year or this year. Let's see. Vilma, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, sure. Um, for me, having a coaching is like having a new friend. It's because
Mm,
I feel like my coaching has helped me a lot with my life, but it also has helped me a lot with my university because, like I say, I graduated from 2020, and going to college was new for me. I didn't know what to do, and I was like first generation students going to college. So my coaching has teach me like she taught me some things, but she also was helping me to be like to how to face this pandemic because at the
mm,
beginning I was like facing like a lot of what a lot of I was like was facing depression because
Mm,
I was passing like a lot of time in my computer. I was passing a lot of time in my house. My whole family was in my house, so it was new for me. So I didn't know like what to do. So she told me like some things like go. She told me go for a walk, like experience new things, do different things that you have never have done before.
mm.
But I really I really like I'm really happy for having a coaching. How yeah, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Brandon? What was your experience like with your development coach?
I still talk to my coach now. We just got through. She helped me make basically a written down plan about what I plan on doing in the future, from short term within the next 5 years all the way to long term. So we discussed that. She also helped me kind of to figure out, the steps I need to take in order to do these things. Then also another thing is she helped me with my resume, helped me use what she called power words, words that emphasize my skill sets. Because at first my resume wasn't bad, but wasn't good either, and she made it basically like really great. And we're having every 2 weeks we have a meeting just to check in, see anything new, offer me any new connections. So yeah, the coaching has been definitely very helpful, and I'm very appreciative of it.
Excellent, excellent. And we should know Brandon was a part of the program last year, and you heard him say that he's still meeting with his coach, even though the program has formally ended. So that's fantastic. And what about you, Ming? What was your development coaching experience like?
Yeah, so building off of what they said, I was fortunate enough to like be matched with two coaches, and I think the opportunity came at a perfect time because we were in a pandemic and we're still in a pandemic, sorry. And we're in quarantine and we had a lot of free time around, and the development coaching program was like a great opportunity to meet someone new and like have that social interaction with a professional under like a new setting. Even though it was like virtual and we weren't able to meet in person, we still got to know one another, and I found that like really valuable.
Excellent, excellent. And so, Ming, you mentioned it, Vilma, you mentioned it as well about the fact that, the development coaching program sort of came at the right time, so to speak, right? When we were in the middle of that pandemic. And, in the last year, we've been dealing with a lot of things in the world. There's been the pandemic and quarantining and all of those things. And then we've, as a country, and as a region here in the Bay Area, we've been, going through this period of time where there's been a lot of civil unrest centered around racism and racial injustice and other forms of social injustice. We're seeing attacks against Asian Americans across the country and here in the Bay. A lot of really tough stuff, right? And you all are young people, right? You're coming of age in the midst of what looks and feels often like just a really crazy time in the history of this country. And so what I'd like for you guys to comment on a little bit is, what has it been like for you as young people in the midst of this, to continue growing and developing and going to school and all these things? What does it take to be able to continue doing this in the midst of everything that's been going on? Brandon, how about you start us off?
First and foremost, my faith is the Jehovah's Witness is the number one thing that always keeps me going. Jehovah God, God's name, Jehovah, always has watched out for my family, has watched out for me. I pray every night, every day, every time I eat. It keeps me going daily. I keep it moving. I do what I got to do. Number two is just I like being respectful, kind, and nice towards others. I like seeing other people smile and everything. So I don't try not to think too much about the negative things. Instead, I try to think, what can I positively contribute? What can I do as a person to make things a little better in a crappy world? Because these things they're tough, and I feel like at times we get desensitized to all these things as we're seeing them so much. Because what people don't understand is these things aren't new. They've been happening for a while. It just so happens that now we have the technology to be able to report all of these things happening any and everywhere.
Hmm.
So I think the important thing for people to do is, instead of looking at, what the problem is, try to figure out, what you can do to be a part of the solution. And just because everybody around you is negative or doesn't want to do anything or wants to follow, be a leader, be the change you want to see in the world. Um, Lead by action, not by just words, which is the problem with a lot of people now, because they want to say they're going to do certain things and be behind certain things, but they don't actually do it. So
Hmm.
you're going to say you're going to do something, just be about it. And yeah, that's what helps keep me going.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Brandon. Thank you. Ming, what would you say either sort of keeps you moving forward, or even what you just think about, what's been going on in our country, and how you've been navigating things?
For me, I do feel like Brandon said, we're loaded with information these days, and a lot of the headlines we could be like really overwhelmed by it, and even to the point where we're desensitized to it, because like the 24 hours news cycle, we're always hearing like something's happening
Mm,
new within the community that's really damaging. And I think that with our generation, we see a lot of young people like speak up and share information on social media, but it's also like important to have these conversations in our immediate community and like close circle. So
mm.
yeah, I think what really helps is like having like conversations with friends and family about what is happening, checking in with one another.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying about sort of maintaining that sense of community and having conversation. Sometimes we can really underestimate the power of a conversation. Um, so thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And Vilma, what would you say about, how you've been able to navigate your life as a young adult in this last year?
Um, I do agree with my peers because I feel like in this world there's like a lot of things happening, but we need to be like responsible, but we also need to be like we need to learn about the things that is happening around us, because and we need to try to do our best to fix those things, but we also need to do the best to like not like do the same mistakes that the other people commit, because I feel like if we want to make a change, we need to start with ourselves first before
Mm,
before making other people to change, because it is something that I think, um but I said like we need to be like more responsible, like yes.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So then what I'd like to do, because we're coming up on time for this segment, um, is I'd like for you all to leave us with some parting words. We adults here, or older adults, you are young adults. What would you, as a young person, want us to know? What do you want us to leave this conversation knowing about what young people need, and what young people want? Um, yeah, give me some thoughts on that, and give me like the one thing you think we need to remember from this conversation.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Like I said earlier, it starts with you. You can't go
Mm,
around telling people, hey, don't do this, don't do that. You're doing the complete opposite. Just makes you look untrustworthy and like you're full of crap. So if you want something to change yourself first, as Vilma pointed out. It's the number one thing in my opinion.
awesome. Vilma, what would you say?
I would say like never give up with your dreams and keep going.
Keep going, keep going. And Ming, bring us home. What's the one thing you want us to take away?
I think like despite like generational differences and experience differences, I think that everyone's individual experiences have a lot of value. And I think when we have conversations and are sharing everybody's stories, that's what's important. So yeah, thank you all for being here today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Everyone, we please give our young people a round of applause for sharing with us tonight. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Vilma. Thank you, Ming, so much for giving and sharing with our group, with our team here tonight. I think you all really gave us some food for thought and really some insight into just sort of understanding, what is happening with young people, how young people are navigating and figuring their lives out during this time. So thank you so much for that. And so now I'd like to take a little bit of time. You've had a chance to get to know me a bit, a chance to get to know some of our young people a little bit. And now, I want to hear from all of you who are in the room tonight. Perhaps you heard me say something, or you heard one of our young people say something. I'd like to hear from all of you about what you're thinking about the work that we're doing here at the All Stars Project, and how this work is connected to the broader picture of what's happening in our communities and all across the country. Or perhaps, what you're doing. Some of you are volunteers right now in some of our programs, or even, why you're still sticking around here at the All Stars Project. For some of you for many, many years. I really want to hear from all of you. And I encourage you to, if you're, not able to get on camera or talk or use your microphone, feel free to throw some things, your responses and thoughts into the chat as well. But so right now, I want to open up the floor to all of you to hear what you all are thinking and how you all are feeling about this experience.
So my name is Chris. I've been with All Stars in some capacity for a long time. Story that I always tell people is I literally got canvassed across the street from my office building on Kearny Street in San Francisco.
Wow.
I think 2007. So that's how I came in here. And thank you, everybody, all the young people as well who are young adults. So I laugh when you said we're the older adults. Yes, we're all adults here.
Yes.
So good job, everybody. This is really helpful and illuminating. And I know that a lot of the participants in the past have said, we as volunteers with the All Stars Project get as much or more out of it than the young people do, because it really does allow us to see things from everyone's perspective, including people who may not come from similar backgrounds that we have. And so Kaya, and I'm happy to put this out there for everyone, just given the impact of COVID and just given how it's revealed a lot of the structural disparities there are in terms of things like economic justice, racial justice, social justice, just opportunity, availability. Has there been any introspection from the All Stars Project perspective in terms of let's push harder in this area or let's push harder in that area? Or is it just trying to stay above water until everything passes and try to go back to normal? So I'd love to hear, more that anybody has on that.
Yeah, that's an excellent, thought-provoking question, Chris. And I think our stance and what we've been doing through our work in the midst of all of this is, I think we certainly, aren't looking to sort of wait for the storms, if you will, to pass. I think our history here at the All Stars Project has been that, we've been at the forefront in these moments, going back to our roots in activism in New York and in organizing amongst disenfranchised communities of people, right? And I think that we've really sort of leaned into that during this period of time. I think we've sort of even deepened our commitment to doing this work, that we've been doing for so long, but doing it in new ways, and doing it in ways that are relevant to the time that we are now living in, right? So what does that mean? So that means things like still continuing to bring people together. I think Ming, really, I think that's going to be my biggest takeaway from tonight, is when Ming mentioned, having conversations with people. And so we've been doing a lot more of that. And being in this virtual space, one of the silver linings is that we can bring people together from all over the country now, like literally every corner of the country, to have these conversations and to delve into these subjects and these topics, and to share real life experiences. Like, hey, this is what I'm. This isn't just something that you're seeing on the news or reading about. This is something that I've actually lived, and someone can share their lived experience, and we can grow and build with that. And so we've been able to sort of expand some of our programming in that regard. For instance, our program called Operation Conversation, where it used to be, or not used to be, one iteration of that program deals with working with cops and kids and building those conversations and those relationships. And we've sort of expanded that out. And so now we're bringing together all kinds of people, not just police officers, not just young people, but all kinds of people to really have these important conversations. And of course, we're continuing to do this kind of work that we do, where we have this crazy idea that if you bring all kinds of different people together, that they can really create relationships and can really create things where we have this common ground that we can really build from and really create something new together. Which we've seen through, the new development coaching program, through an expansion of our DSY, where now we have young people even who are able to come together from all over the country and meet together every week. So I think we've been doing we've had the opportunity to do a lot of that over the course of this past year. And I think that's a great question. I'd love to hear some other folks thinking on some of that. And I see people throwing some stuff into the chat. Oh yes, Jill, I love what you said. Drew, would you come on to the mic and kind of just say out loud what you threw into this into the chat?
Yeah, no, I was.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. No, what you said to me hits the nail on the head and is really kind of the magic of what we do and how I explain what we do to everybody. And I think part of the reason it's always resonated with people with whom I've had that discussion, but never more than now, because it's exactly what you said, Kai. It's bringing people together who otherwise probably wouldn't come together, and having those conversations and sitting in the discomfort of not knowing sometimes what to say or what
Right.
somebody's been through, and then learning from it, that two-way street. That's what we do really well. And it's I think now it's never been more important. It's always been important, but it's never been more important than it is right now. And at least with the people that I'm introducing to the All Stars Project for the first time, it's really hitting home just how important that is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking, built off Drew, I was thinking a couple of things, Kaya. One is the having the opportunity to continue to invest, and if you will, reinvest in youth leadership, and the value of youth leadership in the racial justice movement, economic, that there's some old timers here, and like, what is it, leading and learning and experimenting and trying to lead in new ways.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in the George Floyd verdict. I mean, that's what it took the world to do new activities to bring this into existence, and that we are in different in places. We're able virtually to not be regionalized in 5 or 6 cities, that we've been able to expand to places that we were never in before. And my background in nonprofits with All Stars and elsewhere was always that, what I love about our independent base and our independent funding is that we can do that. We don't have the strings tied. We don't have a mission statement that says X and we do Y. We don't have the government yanking funds, etc. So it's just so we could be as creative and independent and find out what the young people need and respond. And the young leaders who are developing in professional careers too, like what Drew's saying, bringing new leadership into our board and as coaches.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that, Jill. Thank you so much. One of the things that you said about, finding new ways to solve, to your point, Brandon, in your comments, some old problems, some things that have been around. There's nothing new under the sun, but it's ignited, I think, in so many people. This time that we're in, has ignited in so many people, this creativity to organize, in new ways. Imagine, if 30 years ago we had social media like we do now to be able to organize people, things like that, and using things like that creatively. And I'm seeing, so many young people who are at the forefront of this. And it just, it inspires. I don't know about any of you, but it inspires me for sure. And it really gives me a sense of hope, because to be quite honest, when things are happening every single day, sometimes you just stop watching the news. But then when I hear Ming and Vilma and Brandon talking about things, it really gives me, a sense of hope. Maybe we're going to be okay. Maybe we will be okay. So again, to our younger people in the room, thank you for when you give in the way that you gave today. Even it does more than to people. So, but who else has some thoughts on anything that we've said tonight, and that folks have shared tonight? What else are we thinking about these things?
I have a question for the younger people, Kaya.
Sure.
So I have to imagine going through the All-Stars project has caused some challenges for the youth. And I'd like to hear them talk about some of their challenges, whether it's with friends, families, or other things, and just get an idea of what they felt have been some of their challenges going through this.
I was thinking during the time that we was going to San Francisco, it was kind of hard for me to travel because I was living in Oakland and I was going to classes to San Francisco. So it was kind of hard to me to manage more my time. But I learned how to manage my time, because I feel like from this, I learned a lot of things, because I didn't know, before going to San Francisco, I know that I was wasting a lot of time doing other things that don't really matter. But yeah, I really learned how to manage more my time and be more responsible.
Yes, you did, because you had to be on time to those workshops. Excellent. Ming, you have any thoughts on that question?
I completely agree. I think in high school and college, just like juggling your time and experiencing burnout. I remember traveling. I went to high school in Alameda, so I took the bus to San Francisco, the Transbay bus, and that was quite a journey, twice a week. And yeah, but I think showing up is like half the battle. So yeah, I think it was a really valuable opportunity.
Absolutely. I tell you, Ming, you are dropping some nuggets tonight. Showing up is half the battle. Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Can I point out one more thing?
Yeah.
The thing that I love, the thing that was craziest to me, you actually reimbursed people for their trouble getting there. Like I was so blown away by that as well. Like literally, we would take BART or bus to get there, and then they'd be like, "Oh, how much did it cost?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" They're like, "No, we're gonna pay you back." I'm like, "What?" I was so confused. I thought they were just playing. I'm like, "Nah, there's no way these guys actually do that." And then they actually start pulling out the money and giving it to people. I'm like, that like small action like spoke volumes, because
Wow.
nobody does that. I've never seen that. I've never seen people get compensated for traveling to
Hmm.
anywhere. Usually that never happens, especially in programs. Like any program I go to, I tell them I take the bus. Oh, that's cool. Glad you were able to make it. You guys though, glad you were able to make it. Here's the money to get back. I'm like, wow.
Wow.
So yeah, that blew me away completely.
Wow, thank you, Brandon. Thank you for sharing that. This is such a good conversation, and I wish we could continue this evening, but it's not over because we are going to continue in various ways coming together like this and really sharing and talking as a community of All Stars supporters. And we're just about at time. We have a few minutes left for this evening's forum. But what I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce one more person to you this evening. She is a member of our Bay Area board, and she's going to give us some closing remarks for today's forum. And so I'm going to ask Melissa Bergen to take the stage. Hey, Melissa.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for such a great program this evening. This was a lot of fun, a lot of motivation and inspiration. So I am Melissa Bergen. I have been an All-Star for 12 years and been on the board for probably about 4 years. And I started my journey with the All-Stars in the San Francisco Bay Area, but I recently moved to Denver, Colorado for personal reasons. But really was excited that I was able to stay connected and be part of the board, even though I wasn't physically in the Bay Area anymore, because All Stars is an organization I've been very passionate about, and I didn't want to lose that connection. And for me personally, the silver lining of COVID has been that everything is virtual now. So I have been able to be even more engaged over the last year through the virtual platform, which has been wonderful, because I think we all know that, right now, it's very, it's a critical time for young people across the country in the Bay Area, and they need all of our support. So, being able to stay connected is one way that I can provide that support. And I want to invite everyone also to deepen their commitment and their involvement with the All-Stars, everyone on the call here. And I'm just going to give you a couple of ways that you can potentially do that. So one is through corporate sponsorship. Get your company involved. It's a great way for you to sponsor a development school for youth intern or charitable contributions. A lot of organizations have matching programs if the company donates, or individuals get involved in the youth programs. So the development coaching that we've heard about several times throughout the evening, it's something I have really enjoyed. I was a coach in the fall. I'm still in contact with my coachee. We talk on a regular basis, and I'm a coach this spring, which is, exciting. And I hope to continue that relationship. Host a summer intern. I think we've met our quota for the country for this summer's internship, which is awesome. But, next summer is going to be here before we know it. So start thinking about that now. Become a volunteer, become a financial supporter. I think Kat's going to put in the chat some information about all of these programs. And then, of course, lastly, our National Gala, which is coming up May 13th. This is a virtual event. It's our major fundraiser. We've got a $2 million goal. We're halfway there, so let's get all the way there in the next month or so. And last but not least, who is being honored this year at our gala? Our own Drew Williamson. So of course, we want everyone to come out and support him at the gala. So I will just leave it at that, because I know we're past time, but I hope to see everyone at the gala. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you, everyone, for dropping into our first forum, first of many to come. And we will see you, like Melissa said, we will see you in a couple of weeks at the gala. But thanks a lot for being here tonight, everybody.